Andrew here. And I'm wondering if there are any grown-ups left in the Liberal Party, the federal Liberal Party, because they're the ones in power. And the reason I ask that question is because in invoking the War Measures Act, Prime Minister Blackface has deputized the banks into enforcing the law. And he sent out, I think it was his justice minister, to say, hell yeah, if you have ties to if you're a Trump supporter and you donated to the trucker convoy, we're coming after you. That's a head scratcher. There are a lot of Trump supporters in Canada? I don't think there are. So what Trump supporters is he talking about? Well, I guess he's talking about American Trump supporters. Does this horse's ass think that he has jurisdiction over Americans living in the United States? Well, he has jurisdiction over the banks. And the Canadian banks have properties in the United States. Did you know that the Boston Bruins play in an arena whose name is sponsored by one of Canada's banks? The TD Gardens, I think they call it. But TD, that's the Toronto Dominion Bank. Is our government saying that the banks can freeze the assets of people living in the United States? Forget how that's going to play on a jurisdictional thing. Like some guy living in Arkansas whose bank was bought out by a bank that was bought out by the CIBC. Now you go up that chain and they see that he attended a Trump rally and he donated $20 to the trucker convoy. Our prime minister has said the bank can freeze his assets. From a practical standpoint, that might be true. They can do it. It's tap a few keys. If this happens, what does that do for the reputation of the Canadian banks? In 2008, when the financial system of the world was teetering on the brink of collapse, our prime minister was an award-winning economist. And our banks were, and before that, by the way, the finance minister before him, who was a Liberal, and give credit where credit is due, Paul Martin, ensured in the years when he was Minister of Finance that the Canadian banking sector was solid as a rock. And we came through just fine, thank you very much. Paul Martin under Jean Chretien, they were old type liberals. They were liberals who actually believed in the idea of Canada. They weren't woke hipster douchebags like we have in charge now, who seem to think that they have the right to take money from American citizens living in the United States simply because some corporate entity bought some other corporate entity and the chain goes all the way up to Bay Street in Toronto. What will that do to Canada's banking sector if they allow this nonsense to go on? Reputation is everything. My senior VP of engineering likes to say credibility takes a long time to gain, and it's gone like that. Do the Canadian banks trash their international credibility by doing embarrassed man-boy Blackface's bidding? This has serious, serious implications. If suddenly, in a fractional banking system, people decide, I'm not doing business with an entity that feels it can do this, all it takes is a bank run. And if you want to look up what happens in a bank run, yes, it's fictional, but look up It's a Wonderful Life and see what happens. You have to have 2%, I think, deposits on reserve. Well, what if 3% people want their money? What happens to the bank? What happens to the Canadian bank's reputation and their reputation for stability? Stayed, middle of the road, go along, your money's safe, stability. Are they going to trash their reputations? Canada's already trashed its reputation. Communist China is laughing at us. Hong Kong said, we only would implement that for people throwing Molotov cocktails in the street. You're implementing it for bouncy castles. Are our banks going to trash our international reputation, their international reputation? Because Trudeau got his nose bent out of joint? I hope not. I dearly, dearly hope not.